Welcome back to Cam. We are here at another episode. Thank you. Thank you. So, we have a special guest. Dasha, can you please introduce yourself to the rest of the world?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having
Of
me. This is
course.
so exciting. Hi, everyone. My name is Dasha. I am a New Yorker, so I live in New
Yes,
York.
I love my New Yorkers. Yes.
Yes, New York is a very interesting space for sure. I am not an influencer.
Well, you have amazing content. So wait, she's hyping herself too down, right? You can guys. Her content is amazing, so please follow her if you want real shit. If you guys want to read about amazing astrology and what energies are going on, Dasha is your girl. She will keep it real 100%. So please don't
Thank you.
stop it.
Thank you. Thank you. I really just try to be the person that just like pays it forward on social media because a lot of the times there's a lot of pressure to be one certain thing on
Yeah.
social media. Um, but so yeah, it took a lot to get there, and we'll talk about that later. But aside from that, I also manage a talent acquisition team for a global company. I specialize in training implementation. So I have about, I would say, 13 years of recruitment and recruitment training experience.
Okay.
Um, and I'm basically the person that goes in and analyzes the problem and tries to fix it with more of a permanent solution rather than, sticking the band aid on something and hoping that it works. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little about me.
So let's get back to your content. Your content, gosh, I've been following you for a while now, I want to say. And I think it must have been you had commented something on me probably one of the times that I was like really like emotional because I remember my first memory with you was you gave me that space to be a mess,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I was like, oh, and I get so emotional. I swear to God, every podcast I've been doing, it's like the first 5 minutes,
I
Chiona,
love it.
you know? And so for me, it was I love the connection with strangers where you could feel so alone and
Mm-hmm.
somebody on a screen can just give you that space when again I was very good at suffering in silence, so I didn't
Yeah.
want to bother family.
Yeah.
And you were so kind where you were just like it, Caro, I can feel your pain, I'm so sorry. Like it was just so nice and so genuine. And I remember when I started to look at her content, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so one of my girls. Like, she keeps it real. She's blood. And then now I'm like, that's right. She's New Yorker. I was like, I get it. That's my vibe. Those are my people.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think it's all about, right, like how we act with strangers. Because I mean, I've been following you since, geez, God knows when. I don't even remember when I started following you, but I was always attracted to the way that you had talked about, what you had been through, but also your healing, but also you navigated social media so well in terms of just being authentic and so real. So there was never a time where I was like, oh, what is this girl talking about? Like, this is weird, It
Yeah.
was always like, wow, she's so real. She understands, she gets it. And I can connect to her through a screen. And I really appreciate that kind of realness because it's really hard to find nowadays, especially.
Well, I'm really bad with taking compliments as a Capricorn, right? So I'm very much working on that. So thank you. Oh my God, I'm getting so emotional.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you for saying that because for so many years I was very hard on myself. I
Yeah.
just I just wanted to be honest because I know how messy life, grief, and
Mhm.
as weird as it is being on Revenge Body and being around the Kardashians, it was like that's so wrong. That's such a
Mhm.
lie. Like
Mhm.
I hated and I saw the difference of when I started to remove these ugly accounts that I was following where it was nothing but body shaming myself and I was being
Yep.
like I was criticizing myself and and it just wasn't good. And again,
Yeah.
with your content, I was like, man, Like this girl gets it. Like she's down to earth. She keeps it real. First of all, you are living the dream. I love seeing when you and your honey are traveling. Like you guys are living the dream, and it just makes me so happy to see your videos, your posting, like how happy you are. And it truly is something when you can see somebody else. And I always tell people when they ask about being envy, right? I'm like, dude, if
Mm-hmm.
you see somebody with the car that you want, if you see somebody with the life that you want, that's like God in the universe saying, like, you're right around the corner. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
almost gonna get it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's right there, right? But
Yeah.
but you have to do the work. And
Yes.
unfortunately, 90% of the people, it's they want the big dreams and they want the loving spouse and they want the career and they want this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But they see social media and they think it's an instant gratification, right? They think
Yep.
it instantly comes, and it's like, no, there's a lot of messiness. You talked about your corporate career, 13 years. Like that took you having to build the corporate ladder, having to deal with difficult people, deal with
Oh
difficult
my
boomers,
goodness.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Difficult women. Like, it's going through the trenches, and then we learn from that. So for me, and Cam, can I be honest? Uh, my question for you is your mindset. That's something that I love, I enjoy. Again, your content just brings me joy. What was that for you? How did you know? When did you make that shift to have the
Mm.
different mindset? Because those of us who get it, we get it when we say mindset, and then there's
Yeah.
others who hear mindset and they're like, "Well, what do you mean? I can't be positive all day?" And that's not what it is.
Mm. That's such a great question, and thank you again for the compliment. I think that, when we talk about mindset, like you said, people are just always quick to assume that it's about being happy all the time, feeling like you're happy go lucky, and ignoring all of your problems, right? But that's not really what that is.
Yeah.
Uh, I, well, just to give you some context, I grew up in a very different space. So my mom was very, very different than I was. She was very emotionally abusive, and she never really took the time to teach me how to think about life in a different way other than being so fixated on a problem, right? So, from a very young age, I was taught two things. I was taught how to live in fight or flight and how to hate my body. So, these two things were, subconsciously just there all of the time. And I think that when I hit my early, I would say like my late 20s, I started thinking about all of the things I wanted, right? Like you said, like I want this relationship and I want this kind of success. And like, why am I not getting it, right? Like, what is wrong with me that I can't get to what I'm seeing on social media or from other people? And I had met actually this woman, her name is Melissa. We're actually really good friends now. And she started really talking to me about what mindset was. And I started quickly understanding that mindset was about self love, and it was about healing your inner child. And it was really about starting small. So asking yourself in the morning, hey, what do I want to do today? What do I need for myself? Is my body tired? Do I need a break? How am I feeling about certain people in my life?
Mhm.
Um, how am I talking about myself? How am I talking about my problems, my situations? Um, and I think with that understanding, I slowly started to change the way I was interacting with people. Like, for example, I stopped talking about anything negative that I was experiencing. I just stopped. I stopped giving it attention. I knew there was an issue that had to be resolved, and I just understood that and continued to talk about the positive things that I can control.
Mhm.
Um, I lost a lot of friends in the process because I stopped hanging out with people that just weren't it for me. I didn't want to drink and hop around bars all day long. I didn't want to spend money on, whatever
Yeah.
shoes and materialistic things all the time. I wanted people that I could connect with and have authentic conversations with, because what I was finding was that the friends that I used to have could only give me the bar hopping and the partying. They couldn't give me the vulnerable conversations or,
The deep
you know,
stuff, right? Those deep
yeah.
conversations where it's like, you're in a
Hmm.
parking lot crying because you're talking about the cute guy in the bar, and then you're like, oh my God, the issues with my dad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yes,
Yes. And that makes such a difference,
it does.
And I think the other part was really understanding how I talked about myself, because yes, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you have to believe that you are perfect, that everything is wonderful for yourself and everything that you think about yourself is beautiful. I understand we're all humans, right?
Yeah,
We pick ourselves apart all the time.
totally.
But where can we start to navigate a more loving conversation with ourselves? Can we just compliment ourselves in the mirror once a day? Can we just start there? You know? Um, so I kind of just started slowly integrating these things and changing. You talk a lot about effort, like putting in the effort to change, putting in the effort to do things that are worthy for us. And that's what I kind of started to do. And I think, you talk a lot about the universe giving you things or showing you
Mhm.
things. And I think that's what really happened. As soon as I released that resistance and told myself, okay, well, I'm going to try. I may not feel as deserving today, but tomorrow I may feel better.
Mhm.
And the day after, I'll do the same. I started getting all of these things just literally flown into my lap. I got a new job. I got another apartment. I, met my partner now, like
Love
within
it.
like
I
within
love
3
it.
weeks. 3 weeks. I was like, what? I was like, what is happening? What are we doing?
Girl, you had a quantum
Um,
leap. That was quick.
yes, and I was shocked because like when you know, I was renting a room at the time, and this room was like a freaking closet. I mean, it was just, I couldn't even fit a dresser in there. And every day after getting out of work at a job that I really, really hated, I would say, I'm going home to my new apartment and I feel amazing and I have so much money in the bank and I am going home and I'm going to cook myself a great meal because I actually have a kitchen. So like all of these things started coming into fruition because I stopped really paying attention to the really negative things.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew they were there,
Yes.
right? I still was making an effort to fix whatever I needed to fix, but I stopped freaking out. I stopped living in fight or flight. I stopped thinking that I had to fix the problem tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just like trusted it, right? I learned how to trust myself. And
Yes.
that's a really big process for
The
sure.
energy shift. It sounds like you had that shift where we all get to a certain point of like,
Yep.
you know what? I'm just gonna, like you said, the surrendering. I'm just gonna surrender.
Yes.
And what is it gonna hurt to believe that this is possible? But
Yeah.
and you know what? And I was just talking to a group of girls the other day, and I was telling them, I'm like, you can't be your first no. You can't be
Mm,
your first no.
I love that.
And only because I had my mentor tell me that, because I was always like, no, it's because I can, it's because I'm not senior enough, I'm not this, and I'm not da, da, da.
Mhm.
And he was like, have they told you no? And I'm like, well, no. And he's like, so then don't be your first no. And I was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
never thought about that, right? Like
That's so
never,
good.
never
That's so
thought, because what happens is it's natural to be scared to do something. It's natural to be scared to jump
right.
into a leap of, hey, I'm gonna love myself, because if I want to attract the right partner, I gotta
Yeah.
heal and I gotta love myself a little
Mhm.
more to figure out what is even that right partner look and feel like, right?
Yep. Yep.
But sometimes that is a really scary thing for some women. And
It's so
and it's
scary.
right.
Yeah.
And they say, well, no, I'm not worthy of a good guy. Or no, I was always told I'm panzona, or I'm not pretty,
Mhm.
or, all of that negative talk that we were told. And I feel like culturally, sometimes that plays a part too, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
our poor parents, I think, I don't know if you've had this where there are times that I'm just like, you just weren't allowed to even have that space to heal yourself,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
you guys were in survival mode. I always tell my parents all the time, how did you do it with 4 kids? Like, how did you
Oh
do it
my
with
goodness.
four? How did you, be new to this country, like, learning the language, learning the American culture, assimilating, like, how did you guys do it, and they both were just like, you just did, you did, there was just no choice. And as we get older and we heal ourselves, we figure out, like, wow, they were in survival mode.
Yeah.
They were in survival mode, and
Yeah.
pobrecitos. That's why, sometimes they would say some things you're just kind of like, what? And then you figure out, oh, my abuelita was like that, or my grandpa was, and
Yep.
you, like my mom. So when I had my bridal shower, one of my besties had it. She has a spa, and that was my mom's first facial at 71. That was her
No
first. That
way.
was her first, like, self care.
Oh my God.
And she liked it, of course. She's like hooked now, right? But it was, the she allowed herself to have that space.
Mm.
And I think that's just, like, so important. And I feel like you naturally do such a good job, Dasha, of, whether it's a stranger, whether it's someone who you're super close with, you give people that space and that non-judgment. And, as we're going into the age of Aquarius, as we were talking about earlier, that's like
Mhm.
something that's just so important to have, because with AI coming in and with the
Mhm.
evolution of all of that, we're seeing Amazon, have robots do the packaging now. Or, why?
Yep.
Because there's no workers' comp, right? Like, there's so many attributes of being a human, and everything that's going on, that now things are starting to be robotic. It
Absolutely.
We still need a human touch,
Yeah.
and conversations like this and spaces like this, where we can be like, yeah, a mindset shift looks very different for everybody. It's still the basic core foundations, right?
Mhm.
We just all experience it in different orders sometimes.
Yeah.
But after you had your mind shift, after you are like manifesting like a mofo and creating your dream life, what I've usually had people come up to me and be like, I've just manifested my dream life, like, now what? And I'm like, you dream bigger. So
Ooh, that's so
what was
good.
it for you when you hit that you're just like, wait a minute, like, I've literally gotten everything I put on my vision board, I put on my, like, journaling, like, you know, what did that look like for you after you did all of that?
Well, I'm sure you are very familiar with imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard.
So that, that guy came around the corner, and was like, what's happening? What's going on? Because I think that since, since I grew up in survival mode, I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes.
So, my mom would always say, like, oh, okay, today was a great day, but we don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. It may
Mhm.
be a horrible day, right? So, also, why would you say that to your employer? But, but I'm just, um, so I started experiencing massive imposter syndrome, and I started questioning everything. I was just like, how long am I going to have this? Do I really deserve this? Like, what if this doesn't work out? What if my boss hates me tomorrow? All of these things. And that's one thing that I really do want to know. Like, a lot of people think that once you get to that mindset shift and once you're here, like, it's always like this, but
Mm.
it's not. It's like this. It's like that.
Just like life, right? Just
It's
like
like,
life.
yeah. But now you have a new tool, right? To help you through the really, really difficult spaces.
Yes.
Um, and so it took a lot for me to, like, tap back in. And I also understood that I needed to do more work. right? I, like you say, like I needed to dream bigger, but also I needed to dream bigger in terms of like more healing. I needed to peel more layers, right? I needed to figure out why I was having those really unnatural thoughts, because they are unnatural. You
Yeah.
know, we grow up in a space where like social media makes us think that it always has to be perfect, it always has to be this way. And then also, you know, we're in a corporate environment where a lot of the times you are around senior level successful people and you think you have to be a certain way forever,
Yes.
right? Like you can't, I mean, especially as a woman, like you can't fail. Like you
Yeah.
can't make a mistake.
Oh
No
no.
way.
No, because then that knocks us down 10 steps back. Because then it's like,
Yep.
oh, yep, I knew you're incompetent. And you're like, dude, five,
Yep.
10 years straight. And now all of a sudden you know?
Yep.
Or guess what? We're choosing not to burn out anymore.
Oh.
And we're showing it, right? It's now like, hey, I know I've been the person, the go-to for 10, 15 years. Not anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
burning out. It is what it is. But it is
Yeah.
interesting how again those spaces, right? To be able to be allowed to have those spaces.
Yep. And and that's the thing. Like we need to accept and understand that we are going to have those moments.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I see a lot of difficulty now within like this generation of that acceptance. Like I had a conversation with someone the other day and she's maybe 20, 21, and she was like, "Oh, well, I have to look this way or I'm never going to be married." And I'm like, "What do you mean you have to look? Look what way? What way do you have to look like? You're a person, you're amazing, you have a personality, you're smart, you know, and it's okay. You're going to get married whenever you're going to get married." But it's just really that mindset,
Yeah.
right? Like you really have to try to change that so everything else can just get better for you.
And you're right with the Gen Z, unfortunately, because
Mm-hmm.
of the way they grew. I mean, what is it? Millennials were the last ones that grew up knowing what it's like to play outside, like
Yep.
truly
Oh,
play
yeah.
outside, right? Like, the street lights turn on, race home.
And we would pray that some of the street lights would still stay on and maybe break, and we would still be outside with friends playing with sticks and dirt.
It was just such a different time. And then we got the exposure of the internet, right? But you're right. There was something I remember one time years ago, my nieces would tell me how they couldn't post a picture until like three friends approved it. And because there was, I was like, I'm sorry, there's an approval process? Like, what
There's an
the,
approval
you
process for a
know?
picture.
It was
Oh
wild.
my goodness.
And they were young. They had to have been at least like 12, 13 at the time.
Wow.
And so, super impressionable age.
Yeah.
But I also have noticed too, a lot of my Gen Zs that work for me, they also don't have, I mean, those that have shared their social media, um, they don't post very much. They do a lot of stories,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't
Mm-hmm.
post very much. And one of
Mm-hmm.
them shared with me that she says because it's too permanent. I was like, wait, what? And she just was like, well, yeah, because what if I don't feel like that 5 years from now? I said, but that's,
Oh,
I said, you're good. I said, that's normal. You're not going to feel
right.
the same way. I said, but
I knew that.
you're going to see a level. I mean, if you look back at your social media from when you started, right? Okay. The
Oh
stuff,
my God.
cringe, the stuff that I
Cringe.
was posting on Facebook.
First of all, I still hate my high school friends for letting me do what I did to my eyebrows. I'm just gonna say that. I'm just gonna say that now. Like
You're like, first of all, none of you loved me.
I will never forgive you if you're watching this. I will never forgive you.
But it's wild. I think I remember seeing one time on Facebook. It was like 20, not even, no, was it 20 now? No, maybe 20 years ago. 15, maybe 15. Where I put something like, gonna grab lunch. Like, grabbing Starbucks. Like
Oh my God.
literally like every step. So kind of like the new stories, because don't get me wrong, like I'll post my workouts, But it
Yeah.
was like legit. It was so cringe, Dasha. Like I even saw it and I was like,
You were
you
like,
know,
delete, can I delete this? Can I erase this?
dude.
Can I just
And then in
delete
my
it?
head, I was like, you know what? Ah, it's already there. Who cares? I'm like, who cares? But what I was trying to explain to her was that I was like, hey, you have a way of being able to see your growth
Mm-hmm.
from the first couple of pictures that you're posting and what you are writing and the hashtag
Yep.
to see how much grace you have now for yourself and how different things are, and
Yeah.
so it was an interesting convo when I spoke to my Gen Z. I was like, oh, let's talk about this, because as you know, in the workspace, especially with incorporating Gen X, baby boomers, and Gen Z, it's for me as their boss, I've really focused on and incorporating that when we have our standings, it's, how are you as a person first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I need to know you're okay. And
Yeah.
sometimes, again, right, being somebody, I'm very good at suffering in silence. It was, if I knew how good I could be, I would always worry about, what if I have an employee who's struggling really hard and just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have anybody, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been grateful for my team for them being vulnerable and for sharing. But again, I go back to how it's so important for them and for me, for all of us to have a space where we can do that. And like you
Yeah.
said, social media has just changed. It's going to continue to evolve. It's going to, we were talking about earlier how, hopefully with the AI coming in, we don't become Wally. Like, we don't
It's so
become the
scary.
generations to come that we hover around and we don't conversate or
Yeah.
touch hands, or connection is so important.
So
And
important.
when it comes to your own mindset, that
Mm-hmm.
self connection, that self awareness, that self love, and again, I think self love to somebody can be different in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
When you're really doing the work and you're really doing the shadow work, it's really having to, at least for me in my journey, it was really having to sit there in a mirror and be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, why do I think this? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
why do I feel this? Okay, what do I have control of that I can work on? And what do I
Mm-hmm.
not have control of?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I was constantly telling myself was rejection was protection, man. Rejection was
Yep.
protection. And when I look back at those moments that I had to tell myself that, and I look back at the jobs that I didn't take or I didn't get, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
thank God. And Facebook was one of them. So I'm like, thank God that I said that was a hard no, because could only
Yeah.
imagine how, with all the data and all the information we know now, like it's so harmful. You know what I
It's so
mean?
harmful. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
but mindset and finding out an imposter syndrome, what are your daily tools for you to get out of that? Because you're right, it is hard, it is very hard, and it's I've learned it's a daily decision, and I don't wake up happy all the time, but I
Mm-hmm.
make the choice to tap into my gratitude. How do you handle that when you have it daily?
Oh man, that's a great question. Um, well, I think the first thing that I do is I do some kind of movement for my body. Um, it's a great way to tap back into self,
Yeah.
especially if you are going through something traumatic or something stressful, or if you are sitting in anxiety for whatever reason, because let's face it, we have those moments. um, Even like a light stretch or a jump, or I don't know, do 10 jumping jacks and breathe in and out deeply for a couple of minutes, right? So getting back into your body is number one. I think the other one is I write down my affirmations, but I also write down all of the things that I want as if I already have them.
Yes.
And it was so funny. I was talking to my friend about this a couple of weeks back, and she was like, what do you mean you journal, but like you journal all the positive things? Like when you journal, aren't you supposed to journal like your deepest darkest fears and your sadness? And I'm like, no, you're not.
You're like, no.
I'm like, can we talk about why you do that in the first place? I was like, are you, journaling sadness at 6 a.m. and
Yeah.
crying into a notebook? Because that's not how you want to start off your day.
Yeah.
Um, but, again, that's a shift in mindset, knowing that what you put on paper also is very realistic, right? And then
Yeah.
the other part, you were talking about providing a safe and healing space, right? Whether it be to your team or your friends or your family. Um, you know, like the facial that your mom got, right? Like you opened the door for that and you provided the foundation and space to say, hey, okay, like this is happening and you're going to get this facial because we are celebrating this and this, right? Um, and that's a big part for me to pay it forward. I feel like the more that I'm able to have conversations with other people and support them,
Yeah.
um, as long as my cup is full and not empty, I'm able to go in and have a conversation with you and let you vent and give you space and ask you if you need the advice, right? Or just be there to listen or be the person to take you for a coffee. Like that's so important to me. And I think that's what kind of makes up a lot of the the behavior part of what I do overall, right? Like I love giving back. I love connecting with people. And I also love, just telling people that they're worthy. Like they are worthy. My niece, she's in medical school and she called me the other day and she was freaking out. She was like, I don't know if I'm going to pass this test. If I don't pass this test, I have to do it all over again and I need to be a doctor. And I'm like, you know, you not once did you tell me how amazing you are or how you are alone on an island going to medical school by yourself or how you passed all these other years of medical school. Like let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So it's always important to tell people that they are important, they are worthy, they're one of a kind. There's no one else like you. There's
Yeah.
no one else like you in the world. You literally physically are one of a kind. So why not do something important for yourself? Why not love yourself? Why not think about all of the amazing things you deserve? Like of course you're worthy. Like you were made to be this person,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I think about more so.
And you're so right. It is interesting how when we have those moments, right?
Mhm.
It's truly having to sit with yourself and be like, wait a minute, how far have I come though? Like check in with yourself,
Mhm.
right? And you
Yes.
touched something really important, which is when people like us are giving space to others or having
Mhm.
conversations, because I'm sure you've encountered this, you can pick up real quick when someone's cup isn't full.
Oh
And then
yeah.
you're
Oh
you're
yeah.
right. You're just kind of like,
Oh yeah.
what is happening right there? Because at the end of the
Yep.
day, you're right. That
Yep.
was one of my biggest things on why I hadn't started my women's group yet was
Mhm.
yeah, I knew I always wanted to give back to women, but I knew that my cup wasn't full. And how could I be giving if I was running on empty?
Right.
Right? I knew there was more healing that needed to happen. I knew there was more work that needed to be done. I knew there was a little bit more self care, self love, worthiness, right? The imposter
Mhm.
syndrome kicking in. Who am I to think I could
Mhm.
do that?
Mhm.
Um, but truly is to our listeners who are listening right now, have your cup full. It's always you first. It's not selfish. It's not
Yes.
selfish. Like
Yes.
for our moms out there, I give it to all of the moms out there. The things that you guys do, the way you guys carry a lot of the load, you know?
Mhm.
And if you have a great partner who helps, all power to you. That's awesome. But it's still the nurturing comes from mom, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I've talked to a lot of women from CAM who have always told me like it's, there's really is no time for me to
Mhm.
fill my cup. Like how do I
Mhm.
do it while being in survival mode ish, you know? And
Mhm.
I've always told them, like, like you just mentioned, breath work, your nervous
Yep.
system, tap into your nervous system and just,
Yep.
it's okay. And maybe have the kids join you or have the hubby join you, whatever works, right? Or go in the closet or go in the restroom and just lock yourself in there
Yep. And just
for
breathe.
a minute.
Mommy has to go potty.
Yeah. Just for a
Listen,
minute,
do
get those
something.
get those breath works in because it is it, I'm a Thea, and there's moments that I'm like, man, I'm thinking Thea work is hard, mommy work is, like that is 24/7. So
24/7. Yeah.
and they're amazing corporate baddies, and they're,
Yep.
the sexy wife at home, and it's just all the hats that we wear as women.
Mhm.
And I think for me in my journey, what I learned was I had to burn out really bad
Mhm.
in order to feel and learn that lesson of, oh, wait a minute, my cup is beyond empty. Like,
Mhm.
what am I doing? You know? And
How do
then
you fill your cup? How do you fill your cup back up?
ooh, for me, it's working out's my therapy.
Mhm.
So, but like you said, movement, even if it's just like stretching, yoga, Pilates at home, I don't have to go anywhere at home. A
Mhm.
walk, doing a walk,
Mhm.
hiking grounds me
Mhm.
emotionally and decision making wise. Usually, if I
Mhm.
hike, it's because I have a big decision that I need to make, and I need clarity.
Mhm.
Um, the water heals me. So I'm a beach girl. I
Mhm.
love to just go to the beach and listen to the waves.
Yes.
So
Love
I've
that.
learned that Mother Nature is something that I tap into to fill my cup. And then physically is being around my loved ones. So,
Mhm.
when my husband's home, when Jonathan's home, we are like chicle, right? 24/7. Because when he's home, like I am on lockdown. When
You
he's
guys are the
traveling,
cutest.
girl,
I love
I laugh. When he's traveling, I'm like, world friend tour. Who can I visit? Who can I babysit? Like, what do we got? But when he's home, it is all about Jonathan, right? And then when he's not, I go see my parents, because I always tap into the gratitude of like I still
Yeah.
have them. I need to make the effort to see them. Um,
Mhm.
my niece, so I people, people really, really fill my cup, and but I've had to learn when COVID hit
Mm.
was where because I lived alone. And
Oh,
my whole
yeah.
family, yeah, my whole family was together during COVID, and I was the only one that was single and living alone. And that distance, I started
Mhm.
to, and COVID taught me to really pay attention to the feelings that I was running away from, right? The grief, the
Yes.
heartbreak. I was very good at numbing with work and
Mm.
staying busy, right?
Same.
Right?
Same. Yeah.
And of course, why? We become the great workers, right? They're like, oh my God, Dasha totally could do it. You're like, you just threw three more projects at me? Like,
Yep.
like
Yep.
what? Right? But it's because,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just, and we don't mean to be the amazing like worker, but it's because where we're at on just numbing. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was one thing my therapist shared with me. And she was kind of like laughing because she's like, this is really odd. Because usually typically what happens in a traumatic event, it's normal because it's
Yeah.
just seen. It's not normal, but it's normally
Yeah.
seen that
Yeah.
people will tune into having alcohol for numbing and like
Right.
drugs or prescription drugs, right? And so when I told her, like, I was like, no, I'm just going to the gym like 3 times a day. Like I'm just on the treadmill trying to use that cardio pain to replace the heartbreak. She just looked at me and she was like, oh, that's
Mm.
wow. She was like, the majority of
Mhm.
people would not go that way. Right. And I just was like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't get it. But then going back to how do I fill my cup? It's a physical thing too. Right.
Mhm.
And so paying attention to that and awareness and tapping into like what you said earlier, what do I need today? Do I need to slow down? Do I need a rest? Girl, for the longest time, I used to be like, who takes a nap? I was so judgy. I
Oh
was
my
so
gosh.
judgy. Who takes a nap? That is so not productive. Girl, I am the queen
You're
of
the queen of naps.
naps. And then the worst part is that when I'm really fatigued, I'll knock out, and Jonathan will be like, you slept for like 4 hours. And I'm like,
Because your body needed it.
because
Because
my
your body
body
needed it.
no, it's so wild. But again, allowing that space and
Yeah.
being able to have that. So, okay, so what does the future hold for Dasha? What is the goal that you
Um,
can share with us or share with any of your followers or anything that you want to attract? What would that look like?
ooh, goodness. You have some great questions, I'll tell you. I mean, you know what it is? I used to have like this rule book and this goal book of all of the things I need to accomplish. And over the last couple of years, I've learned to really just flow
Okay.
and just to really be present and tap in. I think the biggest thing for me is just to continue to, to heal in a lot of different spaces, and also just to continue to pay it forward, to help others, to talk to others about different things, to, you know, post very real and uncomfortable stories about whatever it is on
Yeah.
social media, and just being that person that people could feel safe with. I think that's always been a goal for me, and as I get older, I feel like that's definitely something that I want to keep doing.
Yeah.
But I think really aside from that is just connecting with wonderful people like you. I mean, I'm so grateful that we get to connect on this level and
Yeah.
talk about all the things that I think people really need to hear about. And like you said, if it helps one person or two or three, that's all that matters, especially, like you were talking about AI and technology and how it's really becoming something that makes things a little bit more robotic and less humanistic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm just very grateful to have the space to talk about things and connect as always.
Well, you're doing an amazing job, and I think,
Thank you.
what you
So are
just
you.
said oh, thank you. But what you just said resonated so hard with me when you're talking, which was flowing,
Mm,
flowing. And you know what? And I think that's the right wording to use because we're so good at being go, 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 go
so good at it. Yeah.
and goal check, 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 check.
Yep.
I had somebody the other day send me a message for Sunday questions, and they had asked me something along the lines of like, "Well, what's your current goal? What are you doing right now?" And I was like, you know what? I'm in maintenance mode right now for my body.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not on any physical or physique look. But I also think because I outgrew that, because
Mm,
I'm more tapped into, I'm adding building blocks for when I'm 60 and 70 and 80,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
the shift from aesthetically looking to how I feel
mm-hmm.
and for my future self. But
Building the
that
foundation for yourself.
right?
Yeah.
But I had to go through moments of failing in
Mm,
order to understand it has nothing to do with the weight. It has not, us women, we're going to fluctuate in weight only because water weight, our cycle, and hormones. Like
yeah.
that's a given,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely.
so you have to give yourself that grace. But it
Mm-hmm.
was it was one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, flowing. That is the most beautiful thing to say because you're right. Because I truly feel I'm in the same path right now where I'm just flowing. I'm not in
Flowing.
survival mode.
Yeah.
I am enjoying life. I'm resting as much as I need to. The old Carolina
Mm,
would have never taken, I didn't work out this morning, would have never not worked out. You know what I mean? Like it's such a different, kinder, softer me, but
you're
only
tapping
because,
in. You're tapping
yeah,
into more of a softer feminine, which is flow.
yes. Oh my God, yes. The
It's
feminine. Yes.
flow. It really
Yes.
is flow, because a lot of the times women are, you know, I don't want to say naturally, but in this society, we tend to go more towards the masculine space. And that's why we're so amazing within corporate. That's why we're so amazing within our relationships. That's why we're everywhere, right? But when you tap into your soft feminine era, right? It's
Yes.
all about the flow. It's all about the naps. It's all
Yes.
about the
Yes.
rest and the stretching, and so that that just shows that you are in the next space of the healing and tapping into all of the small little feminine parts of yourself.
No, you're so right. Yeah, thank you for that. You're so right because and it truly wasn't until meeting Jonathan where
Mm,
I've never had a male that was like alpha like that, but
Mm-hmm.
still, when I tell you, girl,
Mm-hmm.
what I manifested on my list of what I wanted in a man, like to the T.
I love
And
that.
I always bring this up where my girlfriends are always like, "Oh my God, you got everything on your list, but he's not Latino. You didn't put Latino on there." I was like, "I know I didn't." I said, "But I got my Bruce Wayne because he's from New York. He's a defense contractor." I'm like, "It's there." And when I tell you the energy that he gave me from the beginning, where
Mm-hmm.
I just felt, just I was just it was just so easy to go into my feminine. There was
Mm-hmm.
no there was no, "Oh no, I have to take care of this." Oh no, it was always him being like, "Oh no, I
Yeah.
got it. Don't worry about it.
You
You
felt
just wake
safe.
up."
You felt
Yes.
safe.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I felt very safe. As much as I wanted to fight it, because I did realize later on that I had commitment issues,
Mm-hmm.
only because I was scared of falling in love and losing somebody else again,
Yep.
right? Those are
Yep.
totally my messy issues. And I do work and I still do work and I feel like I will always do work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where I was like, man, I've never felt like this with somebody
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where I get to be in my feminine space. I get to take naps. My body gets to rest. I get to, I don't have to worry about planning a trip. He does it all, right? Like little things that are big for me
Yeah.
that energy wise, what a shift. What
Yeah.
a
Such a shift.
what a big shift, but then it allows for the flow. It
Yes.
allows for the flow to happen. And then you get to pick and choose, hey, I get to be in this flow for however long I want to be
Yep.
until I'm ready for whatever comes next. Oh, it's 11:11 by the way. It was just in LA. In LA, yes, girl. In LA. I love that. And here we are talking about manifesting. I love it because one of my besties, we always text each other when we see angel numbers and we're like,
Oh, I love
oh, what,
that.
11, 2, 2, 2, da, da, da,
I love it. I love it.
we may not talk all day. We may not like message each other, but we'll text each other our angel number.
11:11.
I'm like, girl, 222. Did you see 222? I saw 222. But anyways, thank you so much for
Of
being on this
course.
podcast. I really appreciate your time. Again, time is something we don't get back. So I'm really, really grateful that you were able to share some important messages for others to hear. And I really hope that I'm going to put her Instagram, you guys. So please follow her at the end of the whole description. But I really hope that, when people follow you, they see what I see, which is somebody who truly is just giving light. You really, again, my first memory of our interaction was something where I was truly hurting and you gave me that space. And I'm forever grateful for that.
I'm
So what
grateful for
you're doing,
you.
you're making a difference, girl. And what you're doing, just being you, chef's kiss. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you. And we'll definitely do a follow up a year or two from now because you never know, girl. There might be
Yes.
some new stuff. You're going to tell us you have your own company or
I
doing your own
mean,
thing.
let's just manifest it all now. And again, I'm very, very grateful for being here. And thank you again for spending the time. And hopefully next time I'm in your area, I'll come and buy you a cup of coffee.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. We will definitely connect. Let me know when you're in LA.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Sounds
thank you.
amazing. Thank you.